Roma Dunze, Davante Adams, and Tetairoa McMIllan are primed for big fantasy performances this weekend. We reveal our Week 6 wide receiver fantasy rankings on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today is Crossover Thursday on Locked On, and Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. On today's episode, we are going to reveal our Week 6 wide receiver fantasy rankings. We already went through all of the other positions, quarterback, tight end, and running back. So if you missed those, you can go back to the last two episodes. Let's start right at the top for our wide receiver rankings. And shockingly, this does not normally happen. We normally have similar players at the top, but not the exact same order. And we have the exact same top 6 in the same order. It goes Puka Nacua at number 1, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 2, Jackson Smith-Njigba at 3, Emeka Egbuka at number 4, Roma Dunze at 5, and then Davante Adams, we both have at 6. So we think that Puka and Davante Adams are going to go off in this game, which makes sense since we had Matthew Stafford ranked so high against the Ravens defense that is just, they can't stop anybody. So those 6 guys are locks, no questions asked. But at 7 is where we start to get a little bit different. And you have Garrett Wilson ranked very high this week. It's been a weird trend for us because I've been having Jets players ranked much higher than you throughout our rankings. But then Garrett Wilson, you have at 7, and I actually have him ranked low this week at wide receiver 19. Tough matchup against the Broncos and Pat Surtain. So why are you so confident in him, particularly for the Jets?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a confidence meter. After we get past those guys, I mean, the Buka has just been outstanding every week, and Odunze has been the go-to guy. Those guys seem to score every week and be consistent. And Nacua, St. Brown, and Smith-Njigba are just like destroying teams with their volume and their production. Well, after that, we're trying to find guys to trust. Adams is pretty much up there. Wilson, again, I might think about sliding behind Jamar Chase now that we have the Joe Flacco news, but Wilson has just been good pretty much every week except one here. So he's really kind of embraced the go-to role. They're throwing the ball to him. There's not a lot there going on. Mason Taylor will see, but I think even with Surtain there, they could move around, try to get him off that matchup, try to get him open. And there could also be an opportunity, which has happened a lot for Wilson early, for the garbage time, where he can put up the points where maybe they're playing his zone defense. Wilson can get in the end zone. He's looked really good after the catch as well. So I think basically it's lining up to seeing the great talent rise here. And JSN, Egbuka, Wilson, all cut from that Ohio State level of production at wide receiver. We've seen it with the LSU guys. It's like the revenge of the Ohio State guys. This year, all getting it done. Chase right behind here with Wilson. But then it gets interesting because, again, you don't have Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins. And so that opens it up, right? In the early part of the wide receiver rankings, those are 2 guys that we love to slam it every week. So a little bit of interesting stuff going on here, but I think Wilson eventually will get the volume to produce late in that game.
Yeah, he'll get the volume. I'm just worried. The Broncos are allowing the 3rd fewest points per game to wide receivers. Pat Surtain has no one else to worry about except for Garrett Wilson, so I wonder if he'll try to shadow him. I'm at wide receiver 19. Like, you're still going to play him. I'm just a little bit worried about the production and if he can get a touchdown in this game. Now, my wide receiver 7 is Quentin Johnston, and you have him much lower. So it's pretty much we have these guys flip-flopped. You have Quentin Johnston at wide receiver 20. I have him at 7 against the Dolphins. Johnston is the wide receiver 9 on the season. I know last week was his first bad week of the season. He didn't get into the end zone. He only had 4 receptions for 40 yards. But the first 4 weeks, he's getting the targets. He was getting the yards. It wasn't all just about touchdowns. And really keep an eye on Joe Alt if he's back or not, because Justin Herbert's numbers with and without Joe Alt on the field are drastically different. And for Quentin Johnston to get those long receptions, you want Joe Alt out there. You can't have, Herbert's already missing Rashawn Slater. So if Alt comes back, I feel much more confident in starting Johnston as well.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think they can do whatever they want against the Dolphins. If you look at my rankings, I have Quentin Johnston at 20, Keenan Allen 21, Ladd McConkey at 22. I have no idea of these three who can go off because all the matchups are good. Just pick whoever you want. I mean, the two things that are factoring in here, the tight end is really not a factor, so that's out of the equation. Now we know Amari Hampton is not going to be a factor. He's hurt. So I don't know how much they trust any of the backs to throw to. They might just go shorter, McConkey and Allen, to move the ball that way and maybe have a higher passing volume. So look, it's pick your poison, except they can do whatever they want. Like, there's nobody there that's going to really shut them down. So it's just a matter of, hey, where does he put the ball? There was some energy kind of revved up with McConkey last week a little bit. It wasn't spectacular, but at least they seem to be on the same page again. So I don't know. Like, we're going to have to see. Some games it might be a McConkey-Allen game. Some it could be a Johnston game. And Allen seems to always get his, no matter how it goes. But I think if McConkey has a good game, I don't know if Johnston can also have a good game. It's just weird. We have to see how it plays out. But again, the Chargers are all playable every week because they have so much upside. If they could all cancel each other out, I think you have to play them more as wide receiver twos this week.
All right. That's fair enough. I am going to keep Johnson high just because I think he has the biggest, like huge game potential, but I get your point there. Now, number 8, I have Drake London, and you're a little bit lower on him at 15. He did have a fantastic game before the Falcons bye, right? Really strong performance. And he's been getting the targets all year long. It's not like he was being, closed out of this offense. He's getting the targets. They just couldn't connect. He and Michael Penix Jr. The connection came in week 4 with 10 targets, 8 receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown. I think he can build off that at home against the Bills because the Bills are dealing with so many injuries on defense. I think that will help out the Falcons offense. And Stefon Diggs just had a really big game against the Bills. I do think that Drake London can put it together. He's going to get the targets. It's not like I'm thrilled to have him in my top 10, but like you said, it gets really confusing here after those top 6. So I think Drake London has as good a chance as any to finish top 10 this week.
Yeah, I'm at 15, which is breaking news for me high because I'm never high on Drake London.
Yeah.
I don't know. He disappears for a few games, then he has one big game, then we're all on him, then he disappears again. Look, the Bills just gave up a lot to Stefon Diggs, and if Drake London gets that kind of target volume from Michael Penix at home, which I like to play London more at home in this type of matchup where the Bills, look, their pass defense is not a shutdown group by any means. And again, there's going to be some garbage, we hope. Right, the Bills going on the road, they should do really well against the Falcons defense. So that should open up some garbage here for Drake London. It's not a great matchup for Kyle Pitts either because the Bills are good at tight end coverage. So that kind of will help open things up for London. We don't know how much Darnell Mooney's going to be involved, but I think between volume and the matchup, I am on board with London as a borderline wide receiver 1 this week.
Now, we both have Jamar Chase up here. You have him at 8. I have him at 9, even with Joe Flacco against the Packers. But we feel confident in him this week. And then Tetairoa McMIllan, I have at 10. You have at 11. So we are particularly high on him this week. And it's all because of that Cowboys matchup, right? McMillan's getting the targets every week. It's 9, 10, 8, 8, 8. The yards have mostly been there. I mean, it hasn't been huge, but in the 60 to 100 range. The issue is the touchdowns haven't come at all. He doesn't have a touchdown yet in his career. He has to be able to do it against the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys are allowing the most points per game to wide receivers this year. Malik Neighbors had 2 touchdowns against them. Romeo Doubs had 3. Wan'Dale Robinson, Luther Burden Jr., Garrett Wilson, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore all had a touchdown against the Cowboys. This has to be the week that McMillan comes down with one.
Yeah, come on, Bryce Young. You're throwing a Mitchell Evans into the end zone ahead of your guy, Tetairoa McMIllan. I thought this was going to be a big deal because it was catch radius in the red zone. I thought that was going to be a bigger thing, but they seem intent like, oh, we got to get a 15 to 25-yard play out of McMillan every time or it's not worth throwing to him. And, like, just don't do that because if you notice, he also starts hot. Oh, he's up to 5 to 73. Then it's like, where are the numbers? Why don't they keep throwing to him? So I think they need to just keep him active and give him the opportunities. And if they come against the Cowboys, he's going to put it all together. So we want to see the 100 and the score come together in the same game. This is as good a chance of any, and that's why both have him as wide receiver ones in the top 12.
Yep, absolutely. And then to finish up your top 10, you have Deebo Samuel there against the Bears. I have him at 11. He's been balling out. This is a good matchup against the Bears. Keep playing him. We are going to get to the rest of our wide receiver rankings, including A.J. Brown. He is coming up very soon for me in my rankings. It has to be that big game for him after the talk. But will it actually happen? We'll get to that right after a quick break.
This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. That's of August 2025. From footwork to breadwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard at every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players that we want to come through in fantasy, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Michelle, it's time to continue the show. Yeah, we've not brought up the Philadelphia Eagles yet. So if you're listening to this on Thursday, you have a few hours here to figure out what you're going to do with them. I still think you keep playing them. You probably know that if you're watching, but you want to know from us, what do you think they're going to do? Well, Michelle, I'm not quite sure. Like the Eagles, they got past happy last week, but they didn't get it going to either Brown or Smith, and then they lost the game to the Broncos. This week, they might overcorrect to go Saquon Barkley and make sure they run. So I'm not so sure the game script, if you're watching this before or after the game, is going to set them up for success this week.
I do think like they had to talk, Hurts and AJ Brown. Like a lot of this is narrative. I get it, but it does matter, I think. And I can see Hurts putting an effort to make sure he hits AJ Brown deep down the field a couple times. And the Giants are giving up the third most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. So it's a good matchup. I do think AJ Brown ends up having a good game. And I didn't put him too high just for that insurance. I have him at 13. But I do think this is the week to play him. Like, I get it's been bad, and you have him as a playable guy too at wide receiver 18. So, and then Devonta Smith last week actually had a really good game with 8 receptions, 114 yards. So I think he's also a fine play. I have him at 26, a little bit lower down, because I do think that Hurts is going to try to focus on AJ Brown. You have Devonta Smith at 19. But plug in these guys if you have them. Now, Xavier Worthy, you really like this week. You have him at wide receiver 12. I'm not too much further down on him, wide receiver 17. Why do you like him so much against the Lions this week?
Lions tend to struggle against the best receiver on the other team, and Worthy is that for now. And he's the guy that causes the most problems with the speed and quickness. Now, when you look at them, they're better in the middle, right? We know they have Alex Anzalone roaming at linebacker. Brian Branch makes a lot of plays on the ball on the inside, but on the outside, they're still a little bit weak. They're still trying to figure it out there. And Worthy is going to get the looks and the volume that's needed downfield to produce in this game. And I was looking at the Bengals game, and Jamar Chase finally got the numbers. I did see a lot of people running wide open. It was just Jake Browning was putting the ball in odd spots where he was more thrown to the Lions defensive backs than his own receivers. So I don't think that's going to happen with Patrick Mahomes. He's just a little bit better than Jake Browning. So I think he's going to find some plays all over the field. The games at Kansas City, where the big plays tend to happen a little bit better there as well. They're spreading the ball around, but I think this is a Worthy game here. They got to get him involved and kind of take over as that alpha this week.
Yeah, and both of the Lions starting corners will be out this game too. So
there you go.
Really good matchup for him. And then maybe Tyquan Thornton, who we will discuss later on in today's episode. We are both similar on Cortland Sutton. I have him at 12. You have him at 16. But one guy we're also similar on Jalen Waddle. You have at 13. I have at 14. One guy, though, that we are very different on is Michael Pittman Jr., who I've ranked at wide receiver 15 against the Cardinals this week. You have him all the way down at wide receiver 29. The Cardinals are a beautiful secondary. They're allowing the 4th most receptions to wide receivers this year. And Michael Pittman has been doing his thing, especially in the end zone. I mean, he's caught a touchdown in 4 or 5 games. The yards have only been there in 2 of the games. Well, he was at 41 or under in 3 of the games. But I do think, like, in this matchup, maybe the Cardinals offense can do something through the air. Like, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. pretty high, and so do I. So hopefully that Daniel Jones has to throw the ball a bit. Maybe Jonathan Taylor won't take all of the touchdowns. I don't know. I mean, Michael Pittman has been pretty consistently scoring fantasy points, so that's why I still have him at wide receiver 15.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit worried about the Colts having to do all that much in this game. Like, I think they can run over the Cardinals. I'll just say this with Jonathan Taylor. So I'm just worried about the volume. I think a touchdown could definitely pay off for Michael Pittman to cash in. That's kind of been his calling card. He wasn't a guy that scored a lot early in his career, if you look at it, but now he's back on track scoring and being a force. Keep in mind, I know there's a lot of hype with Marvin Harrison Jr. coming back to Indianapolis, playing where his dad played, but Michael Pittman Sr. played for the Arizona Cardinals. That was his first team. So he might be a little bit motivated to put on a show. Maybe he's heard about which junior is better right now, but Pittman has had the better, longer career at this point. Harrison is gaining on him quickly, but Pittman, good receivers, though, right? He just needed a quarterback, and he has that with Daniel Jones. So I think he's definitely playable. I just like him more as a wide receiver 3 this week versus wide receiver 2.
Yeah, I think definitely. Well, I like him as wide receiver 2, but it's not.
No.
I could see it being a risk, right, with Pittman.
Yeah.
It could go bad if Jonathan Taylor and they're just able to run all over the Cardinals this week. Now, at wide receiver 16, I have George Pickens. You actually had him pretty high at wide receiver at 9 there, but he's been balling out. You keep playing him. And then I mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. We are similar on. You have 17. I have 18. So maybe we're going with the narrative there with him going back to Indy where his dad played, like you said. However, though, I mean, he has been putting up numbers, was getting the targets this year as well. So it's not consistent with him whatsoever, but I do think he can get it done against this Colts defense that's allowing the 5th most points to wide receivers this year.
Yeah, I think he's going to get open. And again, I think the second half of that Seahawks Thursday night game kind of woke something up in him a little bit. Look, this offense is still very inconsistent. That's why they couldn't put away the Titans last week. I know they should have Amari DeMarcado, but the problem is they just don't do anything. If they get a big play and they do something, then they sit on it, and then they don't really build on it. So it's very inconsistent, the Cardinals offense in general. That's why Kyler Murray is so hard to watch if you have him in your fantasy team, because he looks great and then he's not putting up the numbers in the end that you're looking for, because you get excited about it, then he's not doing it at all. So again, I do like Harrison. I mean, clearly is getting some key targets even over Trey McBride at this point. So that's where we want him to be in this offense.
And to round out my top 20, after Marvin Harrison Jr. at 18, I had Garrett Wilson at 19 and Keenan Allen at 20. After Marvin Harrison for you at 17, you had A.J. Brown at 19, A.J. Brown at 18, Devonta Smith at 19, and then Quentin Johnston at 20, with Keenan Allen right there at 21, right behind him. But one guy I want to talk about is T. Higgins, right? Because Jamar Chase, we both have in the top 10, but T. Higgins also is getting Joe Flacco. And how much does that help him this week? How much confidence do you have? I still have him down at wide receiver 29, but I do think you can play him if you have him. And you have him at wide receiver 24. So tell me your thoughts on T. Higgins.
Yeah, I mean, T. Higgins, I actually think Flacco is going to help him, because the one thing Flacco does, and everyone's like, how is Flacco an upgrade over Jake Browning? He knows how to get the ball in the hands of the playmakers. He's going to relatively throw a pretty accurate ball. And that's been his thing, right? When he has receivers, he does well. And he doesn't always have the receivers, going back to his early days in Baltimore. And I think the Cleveland situation was not great for him, right? The way they were calling plays and not opening it up. If you only have David Njoku, you're not going to do a lot there. I mean, the last time he was there, he had Amari Cooper. It was a big difference maker versus Jerry Jeudy. So I think once he has the receivers, he's going to get the ball in their hands. And I think the receivers also like and respect Joe Flacco, right? I think they were losing respect for Jake Browning. They were yelling at Zach Taylor about it. So I think now Flacco is going to steady the course. He knows where the bread is going to be buttered, right? He says, these are my 2 guys. I got to get them involved. I don't really have much else here. And we know when he's laser focused, he's going to make people go off, like we saw with David Njoku and Amari Cooper a couple of years ago in Cleveland, right? It was just about them all the time. So I'm excited about that opportunity here with Flacco. He keeps it simple. He's a veteran guy. He knows what he is. He gunslings. He still has some arm strength, and he has better ball placement than a lot of other quarterbacks.
Now we need to get to the Jaguars wide receivers and what to do with those guys. So we'll get to that and then finish up our wide receiver rankings right after a quick break. The NFL season is in full swing, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's very frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. All fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time and actually just got an alert that the price for the Browns Steelers tickets are dropping significantly. So if you're in the Pittsburgh area, check that out. But there's just amazing deals all around. There's NFL games as low as $100. So go check it out. The app is made to be super simple to use. I could even see the exact view of my seat before I buy, so there's no surprises when you arrive. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel offers me numerous ways to play. I can build parlays, I can try player props, and I can even put in wagers for the live lines during games. It honestly just makes watching any game more exciting. Like if you're watching a Saints game and it's boring, put down $5 and all of a sudden it makes any game more exciting to watch because you have a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Let's continue our wide receiver fantasy rankings for week 6. We went through our top 20. At 21, I have Stefon Diggs. At 22, Ladd McConkey. 23, DK Metcalf. And then through your 23 is Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey. And then 23 is Brian Thomas Jr. for you, which he is my wide receiver 24. What are we doing, though, with these Jaguars wide receivers? Do you feel good about this ranking? They get the Seahawks this week. And then is Travis Hunter a worthy start as well?
Yeah, I don't know if Travis Hunter's even playable at this point.
No.
I mean, he's disappeared. I mean, you do have an
He had a
injury
sick
here.
catch last week, but that was really
Yeah, he doesn't get enough targets. And I think what's happened is the Jaguars are playing good defense. They're forcing turnovers, making plays. And they seem content just grinding with Travis Etienne in a lot of games, right? And just going in that direction. And Trevor Lawrence has not been on point. He's gutsy and he's tough and he like makes plays. Like he's an old school quarterback where like John Elway didn't put up fantasy numbers, but if he was on the field, you knew you had a chance to win. So I think when you look at Lawrence, he's a little bit like that, and it's frustrating at times. I mean, he's not a compiler. He's not going to focus on compiling the same way and throw for ridiculous volume. So when I look at this, I mean, Thomas, you just have to hope for the best. I think that connection is getting better. I think it took a little while for them to get on the same page in the Liam Cohen offense, which I think you're seeing a little bit more. But again, the Seahawks are pretty tough on wide receivers. You can throw to backs and tight ends, so we'll see. That's not a Jaguars' strength right now, right? They don't throw a lot to Etienne. They don't have Brenton Strange at this game. So, by the way, Hunter Long, it could be a pivot here in a really great matchup if you're desperate. But, yeah, I don't know how it's going to play out for the receivers. I think you play Thomas because he's Thomas and hope that he comes through with a touchdown. He did have a nice game just a little while ago. So, I think he's slowly turning the corner. We're not going to have those big games from him yet, but I think they might be coming.
Yeah, and Emeka Buka was able to do whatever he wanted against the Seahawks secondary last week. So
He's better
Brian
right
Thomas,
now.
yeah, I know,
So
but I don't he can get open.
Baker's
It's,
better.
yeah, that's the thing. Baker's so much better than Trevor Lawrence. But hopefully Brian Thomas Jr. can have a good game this week. Now, I have these three guys that I want you to rank in order of how you'd want to play them. Stefon Diggs against the Saints, Calvin Ridley against the Raiders, or DJ Moore against the Commanders. Am I wrong to think that after the Bears had a bye that they figured out a way to get DJ more involved in this offense?
I don't think you're wrong. I mean, he's had a couple big games against Washington. One with Justin Fields, that was in prime time. One they're working out with Caleb Williams. I just think Caleb Williams trusts Rome Odunze more, and I think he's the number one in a way. And I think I don't know. They are seeming to incorporate Luther Burden. They don't use the tight ends all that much yet. So let's see how the Bears kind of. They also had a little bit of Olamide Zaccheaus in the mix as well. So DJ Moore is just very hard. He could have a big game. He could have disappear. Like he almost needs a touchdown to come through. Where Calvin Ridley, we saw some signs of life as the number one receiver last week. It's about time that we saw it, and we thought he was going to have a much better year if Cam Ward is going to trust a veteran and not Alec Imanor from week to week. And we finally saw Ridley step up. The matchup against the Raiders is just so good this week. Yeah. Finally, the Titans get a matchup where you feel like they can get free and do some stuff. So I do love Ridley first. And then Stefon Diggs, how can you not stick with this guy after that heater from Buffalo? Like, I know there's revenge or whatever on the mind, but it is the Saints. You can't beat the Saints through the air. So that's how I go. I go Ridley, Diggs, and then DJ Moore being the most volatile of these three.
So I would actually go Diggs pretty easily. I have Stefon Diggs ranked pretty high this week at wide receiver 21. And it's not just because of last week. I mean, the week prior, he had 101 receiving yards and six receptions. So he's been getting way more involved. And maybe it just took a couple weeks for him to fully trust that knee of his that he tore his ACL last year. So, I mean, he's showing he still has something. And the Patriots desperately needed a wide receiver one to step up. So I'd go Diggs, and then Ridley and DJ Moore are close to me. I'm going to go with Ridley just because I like the matchup better, but I am really, really hoping that we see DJ Moore come out and be much more utilized in this offense after the bye and after Ben Johnson had some time to reevaluate here with his offense. Now, what about Kendrick Bourne against the Buccaneers if Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings are still out, or at least one of these guys, right? Will it be Kendrick Bourne again? Or, Demarcus Robinson was supposed to be the first man up, right? Bourne had a massive game last week, 10 receptions, 142 yards. Can he do it again against the Buccaneers?
I don't know if you meant to say Kendrick Bourne again, but it was pretty funny. Nice. I don't know what you call it, the Bourne ultimatum to score a lot of points. I don't know. He just comes in super sub whenever the 49ers need him. He wasn't like this with the Patriots. It's like he was the reverse Patriot, like the Patriots that go and only do well when they're a Patriot, then they go elsewhere. Bourne is like that player for the 49ers. He just feels at home. And against the Buccaneers, look, their secondary is not all that great. He's going to probably see the key volume. We'll see about George Kittle, I think. No, right? On the fence here. So if he's not there, so you don't have Jennings, Pearsall, and maybe Kittle again. So then you're looking at, okay, they got to throw to Kendrick Bourne. We know that Mac Jones seems to have chemistry with like a random guy that he just latches onto. Last year was Brian Thomas Jr., sadly, that we're not seeing that this year. But this year, it's Kendrick Bourne. So, I again, someone's got to catch passes and make plays for this team in this system, and Bourne is going to get the volume because, again, everywhere the Bucs go, home or away, a lot of points and passing yards seem to follow.
And it does make sense that he has the connection with Bourne since they played together with the Patriots. So it makes sense that he feels comfortable going to him. And it looks like, Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings both missed Wednesday's practice. So just keep an eye out for that. If they're both back, I'm definitely not playing Bourne. If just Jennings is back, maybe I will. It's going to get more difficult if they are both back for sure. But it definitely seems like George Kittle and Brock Purdy will not be there this week whatsoever. Now I have one more question for you. I want you to rank these three guys. They're all similar in the way that they're big play dependent. Jameson Williams against the Chiefs, Tyquan Thornton against the Lions in that same game, or Isaiah Bond, a rookie for the Browns that's all of a sudden being targeted quite often against the Steelers. I like all three kind of, but I want to hear your order.
Yeah, it's very weird because again, some of these guys, I usually only go 40 deep because if you're going deeper than that, yeah, you might need some help during some bye weeks. But when we look at the rankings, I think Jameson Williams, I think he's still the most talented of these three. And there's a chance he just needs to get some smaller catches. He shouldn't just be the big play threat for the Lions. And that's a mistake I think they're making with him. I think he can do more than that. So he's there, but only because of talent. Like, then I would go Tyquan Thornton again, because, again, the big plays, as Michelle mentioned, the Lions secondary is banged up. So that gives a chance. He seems to be the second guy now when they're going vertically outside after what they're going to do with Xavier Worthy. And then Isaiah Bond, look, if you're desperate, you can take a shot. They don't really have anybody there. I think he's the only guy. I mean, Cedric Tillman's hurt. Jerry Jeudy has been disappearing here. They only have the tight ends. And we saw Isaiah Bond look pretty good last week with the targets from Dylan Gabriel. So if you're desperate there, I would go there. I mean, again, Williams, you just have to temper your expectations, really lower him as a wide receiver 3. But in deeper leagues, again, if you're missing a Jefferson or Collins, take a shot on one of these dudes, right? Just play them 1 week. Don't just turn your roster upside down for a bye week, right? Just plug and play one of these guys, hope for the best, then you'll have your guy next week.
Yeah, I actually think Tyquan Thornton's a really, really solid play. The Lions, like I mentioned earlier, with Xavier Worthy allowing the 5th most fantasy points, but also the 3rd most yards per reception this year to wide receivers. So Tyquan Thornton just keeps coming up with a big play every single week. And he had 5 targets last week. It wasn't like it just came down to that one play. So I think the Chiefs are going to have to throw a lot. The Lions are going to be able to score on them. And the Chiefs have no running game whatsoever. So I do expect a couple big plays out of Tyquan Thornton. And then Jameson Williams, you're just, praying that he could be more involved. I put him second, but I do think Isaiah Bond is a sneaky play this week against the Steelers, who are allowing the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. And Isaiah Bond over the last 2 weeks has 13 targets combined. So hopefully he could just, come down with a couple more receptions on those targets moving forward. But that will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen of the day. For your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler, the Madman Roland, gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. I was actually on the episode that was posted this morning, so go listen to that if you want more of me. You can find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back tomorrow with our sleepers of the week and getting into some fun daily fantasy football talk as well. Don't miss it. Have a great night. Bye, y'all.